The stars looked different through the observation deck windows of the UES Discovery. Captain Jake Morrison had been staring at them for 20 minutes, trying to shake off the strange feeling that had been bothering him all week. Something was wrong in the Kepler 442 system, but he could not put his finger on what it was. The Discovery was a research vessel, not a warship. It carried scientists and explorers, not soldiers. Jake preferred it that way. He had seen enough fighting during the Mars Rebellion 10 years ago. Now he was happy to ferry researchers around the galaxy, looking for new worlds and new forms of life. Captain Morrison to the bridge, came the voice through the ship's communication system. It was Lieutenant Ben Torres, his second in command. Ben never called him to the bridge unless something important was happening. Jake made his way through the narrow corridors of the Discovery. The ship was not large, but it was home to 43 people. Most of them were scientists and researchers. Dr. Amy Collins led the xenobiology team. Engineer Lisa Park kept the ship running. Communications Officer Ryan Bell handled all the radio traffic. They were good people, and Jake trusted them with his life. When Jake reached the bridge, Ben was standing over the communications console with a worried look on his face. Ryan Bell was adjusting dials and pressing buttons, trying to clean up some kind of signal. "What do you have for me?" Jake asked. "We picked up a distress signal about 10 minutes ago," Ben said. "It's coming from the third planet in this system. The signal is weak, but Ryan thinks it might be from a crashed ship." Jake moved closer to the console. He could hear static and strange beeping sounds. "Is it human?" Ryan shook his head. "No, sir. The signal pattern is nothing like our emergency codes. This is something else, something alien." The word hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Alien. In all their years of space travel, humans had never made contact with another intelligent species. They had found bacteria and simple plants on distant worlds, but never anything that could build ships or send distress signals. "Are you sure?" Jake asked. "I've checked it 3 times, Ryan said. "The mathematical patterns in the signal are too complex to be natural. Someone or something down there is asking for help." Dr. Amy Collins arrived on the bridge just as Ryan finished speaking. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and bright green eyes. Jake had known her for 5 years, and he had never seen her look so excited. "I heard the announcement over the ship's communication system," she said. "Is it true? Have we really found aliens?" "Maybe," Jake said carefully. "We have a distress signal from an unknown source. Could be aliens, could be something else." Amy moved to the sensor display and began studying the readings. "The signal is coming from coordinates 247.3 by 156.8 on the planet's surface. That's in the middle of a large forest. No signs of civilization, but there's definitely something metallic down there. Could be a crashed ship," Ben said. "Or a trap," Jake added. He had been a captain long enough to know that space was full of dangers. Pirates sometimes used fake distress signals to lure merchant ships into ambushes. Amy looked at him with pleading eyes. "Captain, this could be the most important discovery in human history. We can't just ignore it." Jake knew she was right, but he also knew his responsibility to his crew. The planet's atmosphere is breathable for humans, but we don't know what else might be down there. We don't know if these aliens are friendly or hostile. "The distress signal suggests they need help," Amy said. "If they wanted to hurt us, why would they be asking for rescue?" It was a good point, but Jake still felt uneasy. What if it's a test? What if they're studying us to see how we react? Then we show them that humans are compassionate and willing to help those in need, Amy said firmly. "Captain, please. Let me take a small team down to investigate. If we find anything dangerous, we'll return to the ship immediately." Jake looked around the bridge. Ben was nodding slowly, and Ryan was watching the captain with curious eyes. They all wanted to know what was down there on that planet. "All right," Jake said finally. "But I want you to take a full security team. Lieutenant Torres will lead the mission. Dr. Collins, you'll handle the scientific side. Engineer Park and Communications Officer Bell will provide technical support." Amy smiled widely. "Thank you, Captain. We'll be careful." "You better be," Jake said. "I want constant communication with the ship. If I don't hear from you every 15 minutes, I'm sending down the Marines." 2 hours later, the away team was ready to leave. They wore standard exploration suits with built-in communication systems and emergency beacons. Each person carried a sidearm, though Jake hoped they would not need them. Ben Torres checked his weapon one last time. He was a former Marine who had served on 3 different ships before joining the Discovery. If there was trouble down there, Ben would know how to handle it. Lisa Park was adjusting her scanner equipment. She was young but brilliant, and she could fix almost any piece of technology on the ship. If the aliens had advanced machines, Lisa would be able to understand them. Ryan Bell was testing his communication gear. He spoke 7 different languages and had studied alien communication theories for years. If anyone could talk to the aliens, it would be Ryan. Dr. Amy Collins was practically bouncing with excitement. She had been studying xenobiology for 15 years, always hoping for a chance like this. She had written dozens of papers about what first contact might be like, but now she was about to experience it for real. The shuttlecraft took them down through the planet's atmosphere toward the coordinates of the distress signal, the world. Below was covered with green forests and blue oceans. It looked peaceful and beautiful, like Earth might have looked millions of years ago. They found the crash site in a clearing surrounded by tall trees. The alien ship was unlike anything humans had ever built. It was long and curved, made of a material that looked like crystal and metal mixed together. Parts of it were clearly damaged, with sections torn open and strange fluids leaking onto the ground. "My scanner is picking up life signs," Lisa said as they approached the wreckage. 3, maybe 4 individuals inside the ship. They appear to be alive but weak. Ben drew his weapon but kept it pointed at the ground. "Stay alert, everyone. We don't know what we're dealing with." As they got closer to the ship, a section of the hull began to glow. Slowly, silently, an opening appeared in the crystalline wall. The aliens had seen them coming. The first alien to emerge was tall and thin, with scaled skin that shimmered in the sunlight. It had large eyes and a long neck, and it moved with fluid grace despite obvious injuries. 2 more aliens followed, supporting each other as they walked. Amy took a step forward, her heart racing. "Hello," she said clearly. "We received your distress signal. We're here to help." The lead alien looked at her for a long moment. Then, without warning, images began appearing in Amy's mind. She saw the alien ship traveling through space, saw it being damaged by some kind of cosmic storm, saw it crashing on this planet. The alien was communicating telepathically, sharing its memories directly with her brain. The images conveyed gratitude and relief. The aliens were peaceful researchers, exploring the galaxy and studying different worlds. They meant no harm to humans. They only wanted help repairing their ship so they could return home. "They're scientists like us," Amy told her team, her voice filled with wonder. "They're grateful that we came to help them." Ben relaxed slightly but kept his weapon ready. What do they need? More images flowed into Amy's mind. The aliens needed certain materials to repair their ship's power systems. They also needed medical attention for their injuries. In return, they offered to share some of their scientific knowledge with humanity. "This is incredible," Amy whispered. "They want to trade information with us. Think about what we could learn from them." The aliens seemed to understand human speech, even though they communicated through telepathy. Their leader, who had introduced himself through mental images as Vothak, gestured toward the damaged sections of their ship. Lisa stepped forward with her scanner. "I can take a look at your technology," she said. "Maybe I can help figure out what you need for repairs." Ryan was recording everything on his communication device. "Captain Morrison is going to want a full report on this." As the humans began working with the aliens, Amy felt a growing sense of excitement and hope. This was exactly how first contact should happen. Two species meeting in peace, offering help to each other, sharing knowledge and friendship across the vast emptiness of space. She had no way of knowing that everything the aliens had shown her was a carefully constructed lie, designed to make humans trust them completely. The real reason Vorthik and his people had come to this planet was not to explore or study worlds. They had come to study humans. Dr. Amy Collins felt cold metal against her back as she slowly woke up. Her head was pounding, and her vision was blurry. She tried to move her arms, but they would not respond. Thick metal bands held her wrists and ankles against what felt like a table. The room around her was completely white. The walls, ceiling, and floor all glowed with soft light that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Strange machines hummed quietly in the corners, and she could see screens displaying symbols she did not understand. "Ben?" She called out, her voice weak and scratchy. "Lisa? Ryan?" "We're here, Amy," came Ben's voice from somewhere to her left. "We're all here." Amy turned her head as much as she could and saw her teammates. Each of them was strapped to a similar table, unable to move. Ben was struggling against his restraints, his face red with anger. Lisa was staring at the ceiling with wide eyes, trying to understand the technology around them. Ryan was unconsciously moving his lips, probably trying to figure out how to communicate with their captors. The last thing Amy remembered was working with the aliens near their crashed ship. Vorthik had been showing them the damaged power systems, and Lisa had been scanning the alien technology with her equipment. Then there had been a strange sound, like music played too low to hear properly. After that, everything had gone dark. "How long have we been here?" Amy asked. "I don't know," Ben said. "Could be hours. Could be days. There are no windows in this place." The door to the white room opened without making any sound. Vorthik entered, followed by two other aliens that Amy had not seen before. Up close, she could see that their scales were not just green, but had patterns of blue and silver that shifted in the light. Their large eyes were completely black, with no visible pupils. Vorthik approached Amy's table and looked down at her. When he had communicated before, his mental messages had felt warm and friendly. Now they felt cold and clinical. "You are awake," came his voice inside her head. "Good, we can begin." "Begin what?" Amy asked, though she was starting to fear the answer. Images flowed into her mind, but these were different from the ones she had received at the crash site. These images showed laboratories filled with examination tables like the one she was lying on. She saw creatures from dozens of different worlds, all strapped down and helpless while aliens like Vorthik performed various tests on them. "We are researchers," Vorthik's mental voice explained. "We study the biological and psychological responses of primitive species to various stimuli. Your species has been classified as Category 7 primitive. This makes you suitable for our current research project." Amy felt sick to her stomach. "You lied to us. You said you were explorers. You said you needed help." "We said what was necessary to gain your trust," Vorthik replied. "Your species responds well to requests for assistance. This emotional weakness makes you easy to capture." One of the other aliens moved to a control panel and began pressing buttons. Several mechanical arms descended from the ceiling, each one carrying different instruments. Amy could not identify most of them, but they looked sharp and painful. "What are you going to do to us?" Ben shouted from his table. Vorthik turned to look at him. "We will test your physical pain tolerance, measure your psychological breaking points, and map your neurological responses to stress. The data will be added to our research on primitive emotional responses. "We're not primitive," Lisa said, her voice shaking. "Humans have built spaceships and traveled between stars. We have cities and art and music. And yet you fell for our simple deception in less than 10 minutes, Vorthik replied. "You brought no heavy weapons. You did not scan our bodies for hidden devices. You did not maintain defensive positions. Your emotional reactions override your logical thinking. This makes you primitive." The mechanical arms began moving closer to Amy's body. She could feel her heart beating faster as fear took hold of her mind. "Please," she said, "you don't have to do this. We can give you information about human science and technology. We can help each other." "You have nothing we need," Vorthik said. "Your technology is thousands of years behind ours. Your science is based on guesswork and incomplete theories. You are useful only as test subjects." The first instrument touched Amy's arm. It felt cold and sharp, like a needle made of ice. Pain shot through her nervous system, but it was unlike any pain she had ever experienced. It seemed to go directly to her brain, bypassing her body's normal pain responses. Amy screamed. The aliens watched her reaction with scientific interest. One of them was taking notes on a device that looked like a crystal tablet. Another was monitoring readings on a screen that showed what Amy assumed were her vital signs. "Interesting," Vorthik commented. "Human pain responses are more intense than we expected. The neural pathways appear to be more complex than those of other Category 7 species." The torture continued for what felt like hours. The aliens tested different types of pain, different intensities, different combinations. They seemed particularly interested in how humans reacted emotionally to physical suffering. Amy found herself crying not just from the pain, but from the helplessness and fear. Between the tests, she could hear her teammates going through similar experiences. Ben was trying to stay strong, cursing the aliens and threatening revenge. Lisa was sobbing and begging them to stop. Ryan was trying to talk to them, offering to translate human languages or explain human culture. The aliens ignored all of these responses, except to record them as data points. "Your emotional reactions are fascinating," Vorthik told Amy during a brief break between tests. "Most primitive species simply endure pain or try to escape. Humans seem to experience a much wider range of psychological responses." "Why are you doing this?" Amy gasped. "What do you learn from torturing innocent people?" "We study how different species handle extreme stress," Vorthik explained. "This information helps us understand the development of intelligence across the galaxy. Pain is an excellent way to measure neurological complexity." "There are other ways to study intelligence," Amy said. "You could observe our behavior, study our art, examine our technology. Those methods take too much time and provide incomplete data," Vorthik replied. "Direct neurological testing gives us precise measurements of brain function under stress. It is much more efficient." The mechanical arms moved into position for another round of testing. This time, the pain was even worse than before. Amy felt like electricity was running through every nerve in her body. She screamed until her throat was raw, then continued screaming silently. Through the haze of agony, she heard Ben shouting at the aliens. "She's a scientist, just like you. She spent her whole life trying to understand the universe. How can you do this to someone who's dedicated to learning and discovery? She is a primitive specimen," Vorthik said calmly. "Her crude attempts at scientific understanding do not qualify her for professional recognition. She is no different from any other laboratory animal." Amy tried to focus on Ben's words instead of the pain. He was right. She was a scientist. She had spent 15 years studying xenobiology, always hoping to make contact with alien life. She had dreamed of this moment countless times, imagining peaceful meetings and exchanges of knowledge. She had never imagined this. The pain stopped suddenly, giving Amy a moment to breathe. Her body was shaking, and she felt weak and dizzy. Sweat covered her skin, and her heart was beating so fast she thought it might burst. Phase 1 of testing is complete, Vorthik announced. We will now begin psychological stress evaluation. New instruments descended from the ceiling. These ones did not look designed to cause physical pain. Instead, they seemed to be scanning devices, pointing at Amy's head and body with beams of colored light. What are those for? Amy asked weakly. These devices will show you images designed to cause maximum psychological distress, Vorthik explained. We will measure how your brain responds to various forms of mental torture. The screens around the room suddenly came to life, showing images that made Amy's stomach turn. She saw her hometown on Earth being destroyed by explosions. She saw her parents and friends being killed by alien weapons. She saw the Discovery being torn apart in space, with Captain Morrison and the rest of the crew floating dead among the wreckage. Amy knew the images were not real, but her brain reacted to them as if they were. She felt overwhelming grief and horror washing over her mind. The aliens monitored every reaction, recording how her neural patterns changed as she experienced psychological trauma. Remarkable, one of the other aliens commented in Vorthik's mental voice. Human emotional responses are far more complex than any Category 7 species we have previously studied. Yes, Vorthik agreed. They seem to form strong emotional bonds with other members of their species, even those they have never met. This creates vulnerability that can be exploited for psychological manipulation. Hours passed. The aliens continued their tests, alternating between physical pain and psychological torture. They seemed to have unlimited patience and unlimited cruelty. Amy began to understand that they saw her as nothing more than a laboratory rat, something to be used and discarded when it was no longer useful. The worst part was that she could feel herself breaking down. The pain and fear were overwhelming her ability to think clearly. Dr. Amy Collins could no longer feel her arms or legs. The pain had been so intense for so long that her nervous system had begun shutting down. Her breathing was shallow and irregular. Her heart was beating too fast, then too slow, then skipping beats entirely. The white room seemed to be getting darker, though she knew the lights had not changed. Her vision was fading, and sounds were becoming distant and muffled. She could barely hear Ben calling her name from the table next to hers. Vorthik stood over her, studying the readings on his crystal tablet with scientific interest. The screens around the room showed her vital signs dropping rapidly. Her brain activity was becoming erratic. Her body temperature was falling. Subject is approaching termination. One of the other aliens announced in the shared mental voice that all the Zephyrians used. Should we administer stimulants to prolong the experiment? No, Vorthik replied. We have gathered sufficient data on human pain tolerance. Allow the natural death process to continue. We will observe how the brain shuts down, then conduct post-mortem analysis. Amy tried to speak, to tell them that she was a person with a name and a life and people who cared about her. But no words came out. Her throat felt closed, and her lungs could not pull in enough air to make sounds. She thought about her childhood on Earth, playing in the gardens behind her family's house. She thought about her years in school, studying biology and dreaming of discovering new forms of life. She thought about joining the crew of the Discovery and the excitement she had felt when they received the alien distress signal. She thought about her parents, who were probably worried sick because the Discovery had not reported in for days. She thought about Captain Morrison, who was surely searching for his missing crew members. She thought about Ben and Lisa and Ryan, who were still alive on the tables around her, still suffering because of her decision to trust the aliens. Amy, stay with us, Ben's voice came from very far away. Don't give up, the captain will find us. Help is coming. But Amy knew that help was not coming. Even if Captain Morrison found them, the Discovery was not a warship. It could not fight alien technology that was thousands of years more advanced than human science. Her team was going to die in this white room, and their bodies would be cut up and studied like specimens in a laboratory. The thought filled her with rage. These aliens had deceived them with false images of friendship and cooperation. They had pretended to be peaceful researchers when they were actually monsters who tortured innocent beings for scientific data. They had taken everything human about the situation and turned it into something cold and clinical and evil. But the rage lasted only a moment before fading into exhaustion. Amy was too tired to be angry, too tired to be afraid, too tired to fight anymore. Her heart stopped. The screens around the room showed flat lines where her vital signs had been. Her brain activity dropped to zero. Her body temperature began falling toward room temperature. By every measure that medical science understood, Dr. Amy Collins was dead. Termination complete, Vorthik announced. Time of death is recorded. Prepare the body for post-mortem examination, Ben screamed. It was a sound of pure grief and fury, echoing off the white walls of the laboratory. Lisa began sobbing uncontrollably. Ryan was shouting words in different languages, as if he could somehow call Amy back to life by speaking in tongues she might understand. The aliens found these emotional reactions fascinating. They had never seen such intense responses to the death of another individual. Most species they studied showed some distress when members of their group died, but nothing like this level of emotional breakdown. Continue monitoring the surviving subjects, Vorthik ordered. Their grief responses may provide valuable data on primitive social bonding. Meanwhile, Amy's consciousness was experiencing something that the aliens could not detect with any of their instruments. Instead of fading into nothing, her awareness was expanding into a vast dark space that seemed to stretch forever in all directions. She was not alone. Voices began calling to her from the darkness. Thousands of voices, then millions, then countless. Numbers beyond counting. They were human voices, speaking in languages she recognized and many she did not. Some spoke in ancient tongues that had been dead for thousands of years. Others used words and phrases she had never heard before. Welcome, Amy Collins, the voices said in unison. We have been waiting for you. Amy tried to understand where she was and who was speaking to her. The darkness around her was not empty. It was full of presence and personality and life. She could sense the individual spirits of every human who had ever died, going back to the very beginning of the human species. Where am I? She asked, though she was not sure if she was speaking aloud or just thinking the words. You are in the place where all human consciousness comes together, the voices replied. Every person who has ever lived joins us here when their body dies. We are the memory of humanity. We are the sum of all human experience and knowledge and wisdom. Amy began to understand. Death was not the end for humans. When their bodies stopped working, their minds and spirits joined this collective consciousness that existed beyond physical reality. Every human who had ever lived was still alive in this place, sharing their memories and experiences with each other. But how is this possible? Amy asked. An older voice, speaking with the accent of someone from Earth's ancient past, answered her. Humans are different from other species in the galaxy. Most intelligent beings are individuals who live and die alone. When they die, their consciousness simply ends. But humans evolved something unique. We developed the ability to connect our minds across death itself. Other voices joined in, explaining what Amy was experiencing. Humans had always been social creatures who formed strong emotional bonds with each other. Over millions of years of evolution, these bonds had become so strong that they transcended physical death. When a human died, their consciousness did not disappear. Instead, it joined the vast network of human awareness that existed in dimensions beyond normal space and time. Every human carries the genetic memory of our entire species, a woman's voice explained. Every person has access to the knowledge and experience of everyone who came before them. Most humans never learn to access this information while they are alive, but it is always there, waiting. Amy felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she was learning. Why doesn't everyone know about this? Because the knowledge is dangerous, replied a voice that sounded like a soldier from some long-ago war. If humans knew they could not truly die, they might become reckless. They might stop valuing life. The secret remains hidden until the moment of death, when each person discovers the truth for themselves. More voices began speaking, sharing their stories with Amy. She heard from scientists who had made great discoveries, artists who had created beautiful works, leaders who had guided their people through difficult times. She heard from ordinary people who had lived quiet lives but had still contributed to the great story of humanity. All of them had faced death at some point, and all of them had discovered that death was not the end they had expected. They had joined this collective consciousness and had continued to exist as part of something larger than themselves. The aliens who killed you do not understand what they have done, an ancient voice warned. They believe that humans are primitive creatures with simple minds and weak bodies. They do not know that every human who dies makes our species stronger. Amy began to feel power flowing through her consciousness. It was the combined strength and knowledge of every human who had ever lived. She could access the memories of brilliant scientists and brave explorers and wise teachers. She could draw upon the experiences of people who had faced impossible challenges and found ways to overcome them. What the aliens call primitive weakness is actually our greatest strength, another voice explained. Other species fear death because it truly is the end for them. But humans grow stronger through suffering because we know, deep in our genetic memory, that death is not final. Every human who has ever died is still with us, still fighting, still contributing to our survival. Amy understood now why the torture had felt so different from ordinary pain. Her mind had been trying to access the collective human consciousness, preparing for the transition that came with death. The aliens had thought they were breaking her down, but they had actually been opening pathways in her brain that most humans never developed. You have been chosen for something special, the voices told her. The aliens' experiments have created neural connections that allow you to access our collective consciousness while still alive. You can return to your body and carry our knowledge and power back to the living world. Return? Amy asked. How can I return? My body is dead. Death is a transition, not a destination, the voices replied. Your body can be restored if your consciousness chooses to re-enter it, but if you return, you will carry all of us with you. You will become a bridge between the living world and the realm of human spirits. Amy thought about her teammates, still trapped in the alien laboratory. She thought about Captain Morrison and the crew of the Discovery, probably searching desperately for their missing friends. She thought about humanity itself, unaware that they were being studied. 37 minutes had passed since the monitors showed Amy Collins' death. Vorthek was preparing to begin the post-mortem examination when the impossible happened. Amy's body suddenly jerked on the examination table. Her back arched upward, straining against the metal restraints that held her arms and legs. The flat lines on the monitors began showing activity again. Her heart started beating, slowly at first, then faster and stronger than it had ever beaten before. Impossible, one of the alien researchers said, staring at the readings. The subject was clinically dead for over 30 minutes. Primitive neural tissue cannot survive that long without oxygen. Vorthek moved closer to Amy's table, his large black eyes studying her face. Her skin, which had been pale and cold, was becoming warm and pink again. Her breathing resumed, but it was deeper and more controlled than normal human breathing. Then Amy's eyes opened. They were still green, but now they seemed to glow with an inner light that made the alien step backward. When she looked at Vorthek, he felt something he had never experienced before. For the first time in his long life, a Zephyrian felt afraid. "Release me," Amy said. Her voice was different now. It carried depth and authority that had not been there before. When she spoke, it seemed like many voices speaking together as one. Vorthek activated the neural disruption field that had paralyzed the humans when they were first captured. The device hummed with power, sending waves of energy designed to shut down nervous system function. It had worked perfectly on all the primitive species they had tested, but it had no effect on Amy at all. She sat up on the examination table, and the metal restraints simply crumbled away from her wrists and ankles, like they were made of sand. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Their technology was designed to contain beings with normal physical strength. Amy was clearly operating with capabilities far beyond normal human limits. "What has happened to you?" Vorthek demanded. Backing away from the table, Amy stood up slowly, gracefully. She seemed taller than before, and when she moved, it was with perfect balance and coordination. "You wanted to study human consciousness," she said. "Congratulations. You have awakened something you do not understand." She walked toward Ben's examination table, and the aliens found themselves unable to stop her. Their weapons would not fire. Their control systems would not respond. It was as if Amy's presence was interfering with all their technology. Amy placed her hand on the restraints holding Ben down, and they dissolved at her touch. Ben sat up, staring at her in amazement and fear. "Amy, is that really you?" he asked. I'm Amy Collins," she replied. "But I am also more than that now. I carry the consciousness of every human who has ever lived. We are all here, together, ready to show these aliens what humanity truly is." She moved to Lisa's table and freed her the same way. Lisa was crying with relief and confusion. "We thought you were dead. We saw you die." "I did die," Amy said simply. "Death is not the end for humans. It is a doorway to something greater. These aliens do not understand that we are connected across time and space by bonds they cannot see or measure." Ryan was the last to be freed. As Amy helped him off the examination table, he asked, "What happened to you in those 37 minutes?" "I learned the truth about our species," Amy replied. "Humans are not primitive creatures as these aliens believe. We are the only species in the galaxy that can transcend individual death. Every human who has ever died joins a collective consciousness that exists beyond physical reality. I have been there, and I have brought their knowledge and strength back with me." Vorthek was frantically pressing buttons on his control panel, trying to activate security systems or call for backup. Nothing was working. The ship's computer systems seemed to be shutting down one by one. "Impossible," he kept repeating. "Your species is Category 7 primitive. You have no advanced technology. You have no psychic abilities. You are simple biological organisms with basic intelligence." Amy turned to face him, and her glowing eyes seemed to see right through him. "You made the mistake of judging us by your own standards," she said. "You measure intelligence by technology. You measure strength by physical power. You measure worth by individual achievement. But humans are something you have never encountered before." She began walking toward Vorthek, and he backed away until he was pressed against the wall of the laboratory. "We are a species that grows stronger through suffering. We form bonds that death cannot break. We carry the memories and experiences of our entire evolutionary history within our genetic code. What you call primitive emotion is actually our greatest weapon." "You are still just one individual," Vorthek said, though his mental voice was shaking with fear. "Even with unusual abilities, you cannot defeat an entire ship full of advanced beings." Amy smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "I am not one individual. I am millions of individuals. I am every human who has ever faced impossible odds and refused to give up. I am every warrior who died defending their people. I am every Scientists who push the boundaries of knowledge. I am every parent who sacrificed everything for their children. The walls of the laboratory began to crack. The alien technology that had seemed so advanced was breaking down in Amy's presence. The lights flickered and strange sounds came from the machinery. Your technology depends on the assumption that consciousness is individual and isolated. Amy explained as she walked closer to Vorthek. Your weapons and control systems are designed to affect single minds. But I am not a single mind. I am a collective consciousness that spans millions of years of human experience. Your devices cannot process what I have become. Vorthek tried to run, but Amy moved faster than his eyes could follow. One moment she was across the room, and the next she was standing directly in front of him. When she grabbed his arm, he felt power beyond anything he had imagined possible. You wanted to study human pain responses, Amy said. Let me show you what we learned from all that suffering. She did not hurt him physically. Instead, she did something far more terrifying. She opened her mind and let him experience just a tiny fraction of what she had felt during the collective human consciousness. Vorthek's mind was overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of human experience. He felt the love that parents had for their children, the loyalty that friends showed each other, the courage that ordinary people displayed in extraordinary circumstances. He felt the determination that had driven humans to explore dangerous frontiers, the creativity that had led them to build art and music and literature, the curiosity that had pushed them to understand the universe around them. Most of all, he felt the connections between humans that transcended individual existence. He experienced the bonds that held human communities together, the shared values that guided human civilization, the collective memory that linked every human to their ancestors and descendants. It was too much for his alien mind to handle. Vorthek collapsed to the floor, his consciousness reeling from contact with something so fundamentally different from his own individual existence. Amy turned away from him and focused on her teammates. We need to get back to the Discovery, she said. Captain Morrison needs to know what has happened here. How do we get out? Ben asked, looking around at the alien technology that surrounded them. Amy placed her hands on the wall, and a section simply vanished, creating an opening large enough for them to walk through. The collective human consciousness includes thousands of engineers and builders, she explained. I know how to unmake things as well as make them. They walked through corridors filled with strange alien machinery. Other Zephyrians tried to stop them, but their weapons would not function in Amy's presence. Their neural disruption devices had no effect. Their physical strength was no match for someone who carried the power of human determination. As they made their way through the ship, Amy explained what she had learned during her death experience. Every human who has ever lived is still alive. In the collective consciousness, she told her teammates, death is not the end. It is a promotion to a higher level of existence where individual minds join together to form something greater. Does that mean we're immortal? Lisa asked. Not immortal, Amy corrected, but not limited by individual mortality either. When our bodies die, our consciousness joins the vast network of human awareness that exists beyond physical reality. We become part of something larger than ourselves. They reached what appeared to be the ship's main hangar, where their shuttle was being held. Amy walked up to the alien security systems that protected it and simply touched them. The barriers disappeared, the locks disengaged, and the shuttle systems came back online. How are you doing that? Ryan asked. The collective human consciousness includes every human who has ever worked with technology, Amy explained. I have access to the knowledge of engineers who built the first machines, programmers who wrote the first computer codes, and scientists who discovered the laws of physics. Your shuttle is based on principles that humans understand perfectly. As they prepared to leave the alien ship, Amy turned back to look at the Zephyrians who were watching them go. Many of them were cowering in fear, unable to comprehend what they had witnessed. Tell your people what you have seen here, she called out to them. Tell them that humans are not Category 7 primitives. Captain Jake Morrison was pacing the bridge of the UE's Discovery when the communication system suddenly came to life. Ryan Bell's voice filled the room, clear and strong. Discovery, this is the away team. We are returning to the ship. Prepare the medical bay for our arrival. Jake grabbed the communication device so fast he almost dropped it. Ryan, thank God you're alive. Where have you been? We've been searching for 3 days. It's a long story, Captain, Ryan replied. Dr. Collins will explain everything when we get back. But sir, you need to prepare yourself. Things have changed. 20 minutes later, the shuttle docked with the Discovery. Jake was waiting in the hangar with Dr. Patricia Webb, the ship's medical officer, and Chief Engineer Carlos Santos. When the shuttle door opened, Ben Torres stepped out first, followed by Lisa Park and Ryan Bell. They all looked exhausted and shaken, but they were alive. Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him. Then Amy Collins emerged from the shuttle, and Jake's relief turned to confusion and concern. Amy looked different. She moved with a grace and confidence that had not been there before. Her eyes seemed brighter, more aware. When she looked at Jake, he felt like she was seeing not just him, but everything about him, his thoughts, his fears, his hopes for the future. Dr. Collins, Jake said carefully, are you all right? Amy smiled, and there was something in that smile that made Jake take a step backward. I am better than all right, Captain, she said. I have seen things that will change everything we thought we knew about humanity. Over the next few hours, the away team told their story. They described the alien deception, the capture, the torture, and Amy's death. When they got to the part about her resurrection 37 minutes later, Jake had trouble believing what he was hearing. You're telling me that Dr. Collins died and came back to life? He asked. I was there, Captain, Ben said firmly. I watched her die. I saw the monitors flatline. Then she came back, and she was different, stronger, like she had become something more than human. Dr. Webb ran every medical test she could think of on Amy. The results were confusing and impossible. Amy's brain showed activity patterns unlike anything in medical literature. Her physical strength was far beyond normal human limits. Her reflexes were faster than the testing equipment could measure. I don't understand these readings, Dr. Webb told Jake privately. According to these tests, Dr. Collins' nervous system is operating at levels that should be impossible. Her brain is processing information at speeds that would burn out normal neural pathways. Meanwhile, Amy was working with Lisa Park to analyze the alien technology they had encountered. Lisa had managed to record some data during their capture, and Amy was explaining things about the Zephyrian systems that no human should have been able to understand. Their computers use quantum entanglement to process information, Amy said, pointing to symbols on Lisa's scanner display. The neural disruption field works by interfering with electrical activity in primitive brains. But human consciousness is not limited to electrical signals. We have quantum connections that exist outside normal space and time. Lisa stared at her. How do you know all this? This is technology thousands of years ahead of anything humans have developed. Because I carry the knowledge of every human who has ever lived, Amy replied simply. The collective human consciousness includes scientists and engineers who understand principles that we have not yet discovered. When I died, I gained access to all of that accumulated knowledge. Word of what had happened spread through the Discovery like wildfire. The crew gathered in small groups, talking in hushed voices about death and resurrection and mysterious alien powers. Some people were excited by the possibilities. Others were frightened by the implications. Jake called a meeting of his senior officers to decide what to do next. We need to report this to Earth Command, he said. They need to know that we've made contact with hostile aliens. It's more than that, Captain, Amy said. She had joined the meeting, even though she was technically still a civilian researcher. This discovery changes everything about humanity's place in the galaxy. We are not the primitive species that the aliens believe us to be. We have capabilities that no other known species possesses. What kind of capabilities? Asked Commander Helen Price, Jake's first officer. Amy stood up and walked to the center of the room. Every human carries within their genetic code the memories and experiences of our entire species. Most people never learn to access this information, but it is always there. Death removes the barriers that normally keep individual consciousness separate from the collective. She held out her hand, and the lights in the room began to flicker in response to her thoughts. I can interface directly with electronic systems because the collective consciousness includes every human who has ever worked with technology. I can understand alien languages because it includes every human who has ever studied communication. I can fight like a warrior because it includes every human who has ever faced battle. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Are you saying that death is not really the end for humans? Commander Price asked. Death is a transition, Amy explained. When a human dies, their consciousness joins the vast network of human awareness that exists beyond physical reality. They become part of something larger and more powerful than any individual could be alone. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Does that mean you're not really Amy Collins anymore? Amy's expression softened. I am still Amy Collins. But I am also connected to every human who has ever lived. Their knowledge is my knowledge. Their strength is my strength. Their love for humanity is part of who I am now. Over the following days, strange things began happening throughout the discovery. Crew members reported vivid dreams in which they seemed to be talking to deceased relatives. Engineers found themselves understanding complex problems that had previously been beyond their abilities. Medical staff discovered new insights into human physiology that came from nowhere. They could identify. Amy explained that her presence was creating ripple effects throughout the ship. Human consciousness is more connected than most people realize. She said, when one person gains access to the collective awareness, it makes it easier for others to access it as well. Dr. Webb made a discovery that shocked everyone. I've been analyzing the brain scans of the entire crew, she told Jake. Everyone on this ship is showing enhanced neural activity. It's like being near Dr. Collins is awakening dormant capabilities. In all of us. Jake realized they needed to get this information to Earth as quickly as possible. He ordered the Discovery to return to human space at maximum speed. The journey would take several weeks, but every day brought new revelations about. Human potential. Ryan Bell discovered that he could understand alien languages without translation equipment. Ben Torres found that his tactical thinking had improved dramatically, as if he was drawing on the experience of military leaders from throughout human history. Lisa Park began designing new technologies based on principles she had never studied, but somehow understood perfectly. As words spread through human space, the reactions were mixed. Some people were excited by the possibilities of enhanced human capabilities. Others were frightened by the idea that death might not be the end of consciousness. Religious leaders debated whether this discovery supported or contradicted their beliefs about life after death. The government of Earth declared the information classified while they tried to understand the implications. But the secret was too big to contain. Stories of Amy's resurrection and new abilities spread from ship to ship, colony to colony, until everyone in human space had heard some version of what had happened. Scientists began studying the phenomenon, trying to understand how human consciousness could transcend individual death. They discovered that humans possessed unique quantum structures in their neural tissue that existed nowhere else in known biology. These structures allowed consciousness to persist beyond biological death and connect with other human minds across vast distances. The revelation transformed human civilization almost overnight. People no longer feared death in the same way they had before. Soldiers became fearless, knowing that their experiences would join the collective human consciousness, even if their bodies were destroyed. Scientists pushed the boundaries of dangerous research, understanding that knowledge gained through sacrifice would benefit all humanity. Explorers ventured into the most hostile regions of space, confident that even death could not truly stop human progress. The phrase, "We are humanity," became a rallying cry, reminding people that they were part of something larger than their individual lives. Meanwhile, the Zephyrians tried desperately to suppress knowledge of what had happened. They sent messages to other alien species, warning them about the dangerous primitives who had somehow developed impossible abilities. But wherever Zephyrian ships traveled, Amy Collins seemed to appear. She had become something beyond their understanding, a living representative of human potential that existed simultaneously across multiple locations. The aliens' experiments had backfired catastrophically, awakening a sleeping giant that would reshape the balance of power across the galaxy. Other alien species began to take notice as humans demonstrated capabilities that defied all previous classifications.